Hello Driving Intelligence community. This is part 4 of my video series regarding the 2004 Jeep Wrangler Sahara. I'm resolving a B0300 OBD2 code, which is causing a check engine light on the dash, intermittent miss. I've diagnosed it in this video, and ultimately I have to replace the spark plugs. This is a very involved operation, and so I'm going to take you through the details through the majority of this video, but if you want to skip to the end, I summarize the steps required for those of you that are much more mechanically skilled, what you have to do to remove these spark plugs, and especially those on the driver's side, which are much more complicated. You have to remove the intake of the engine to get to those. So follow along, and if you have any questions, please leave the comments below, and I'd love it if you give me a thumbs up. That definitely helps my channel, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
I've resolved the ABS sensor codes, and what's remaining on this vehicle is the P0300, which is the intermittent miss. First thing I'm going to do is pull one of the coils and one of the plugs and see if the plugs look like they're in good condition. This vehicle has got 56,000 miles on it. Maybe the plugs are due for a change. The spark plug actually looks good, the coloring looks good, but the gap is oversized, which is caused by erosion. There is significant erosion on this, so I've regapped it from 0.05152 down to 0.043, and that should help this one cylinder, but I need to recommend to the owner that all the plugs should be replaced. The owner decided to go ahead and replace these spark plugs, and I have to say that this is one of the more complicated spark plug replacements I've ever done. I'm not real pleased with the way Jeep designed this. The first spark plug here was easy to get to, but the battery box is over these wells, these spark plug wells where the coils exist. And then you've got this vacuum line that's sitting right over the coils. So I'm going to have to pop this vacuum line off, which isn't really a big deal, but just, you know, with a few changes, this could have been a lot easier to accomplish. It's going to make your job a lot easier so you don't lose these traditional spark plug sockets down in the well, because they're damn difficult to get out. Is this magnetic style spark plug remover. It's got somewhat of a universal section here. It's magnetic, and you can reach this thing from the top. Once you tighten up your spark plug, you can pull it out much more easily than trying to fish this thing out if it keeps coming off the end of your extension. Replacing this coil pack, the center coil pack on the passenger side of the vehicle, is not difficult to do, but reconnecting this electrical connector is very difficult. These lines for the heater core that go across here make it very difficult to reach this. I actually took these nuts off, but they didn't do any good because I can't get this thing off and pushed over. And plus, there's another piece of metal for this bracket that's underneath this, so I had to use this hook that I'm pointing with to line up this electrical connector and then pull it into the coil. Really not a good design. I've started making access to the driver's side spark plugs, which requires this intake to be removed. The first thing I did was take this intake tube out. We got to disconnect some vacuum hoses. I removed the electrical harness from the throttle body and some other components in here. So now, and I also removed the insulation in the back. So now I've got to remove this entire intake. So I released the intake. This is quite a project for 6 spark plugs. You can see I've got the coil packs exposed now, but I had to I didn't completely remove this. What you have to do, you can see this bracket down here with these 2 studs. There's another bracket here. I had to take this one out completely, lift and rotate this out after getting all the bolts on the other side. There's a tab, this metal right here underneath this bus, that also bolts down to the intake on these two locations. And You got to be very careful because now the plenums are completely exposed. I've put a rag on top. And if you drop a nut down there, that's the end of this engine. So I've now got all the plugs replaced, torqued to about 25 foot-pounds. And got my last coil to go on with dielectric grease, and then I can reassemble. Since this was so complicated, I'm going to go in summary what it takes to replace these spark plugs. You've got 3 coil packs on this side that are held in with 10mm bolts. You're going to have to disconnect the electrical connection. You're going to have to remove that hose hold down right there in order to get these 2 coil packs on the end out. And that's the beginning of a somewhat difficult operation. The big problem is that you have to take this entire intake off, which is going to involve removing this intake tube from your airbox to your throttle body, disconnecting all these electrical connections, disconnecting vacuum lines, removing these vacuum lines off the side of the intake, taking out 7 bolts, 3 on top, 4 on the bottom, plus another 2 that are part of this bracket for this electrical connection. Then you'll need to remove this bracket, which is 2 bolts here and then 2 more bolts underneath the throttle body. 2 bolts here. You'll remove these 2 brackets and this insulation wrap. And then what you'll do is you'll pull the whole thing up and then angle it to the passenger side, which is going to get you underneath there. You don't have to pull the whole thing out, because it gives you access underneath this. There's another piece of insulation here that insulates between the airbox and the coils, probably to keep the airbox cool. And you're going to want to be very careful, because underneath here, after you pull this intake up, you're going to have exposure to the engine, which if you drop anything down there and start this engine up, then the engine is gone. It's toast. And of course, reassembly is the complete reverse. If you have any questions, please leave them below, and I'd really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, because that helps my channel grow and for my channel to be recommended to other users.